Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another installment of Second Breakfast Podcast. Today, it's another episode of Project Melway, where Phil and I go through Mel Gibson's filmography, every single movie he ever did as an actor, in chronological order. Today, Project Melway, Episode 10, Project Melway X, Mrs. Soffel. A prison escape romance starring Mel Gibson, Diane Keaton, Matthew Modine, Terry O'Quinn, Edward Herrmann, and if you ask yourself, how is it possible that this movie could have been made in the mid-'80s and I would have never heard of it? Well, the answer is simple. It's terrible. It is terrible, and it is boring. But I don't think the conversation about it is boring. It's actually a lot of fun. So, without any further ado, Project Melway, Mrs. Soffel.
Do you know what was not a good movie?
What was not a good movie?
Mrs. Soffel.
Oh, God. It was so terrible. It was
The thing
so
is, they
terrible.
made a movie with Mel Gibson and Diane Keaton that no one had heard of, so the chances of it being good are pretty slim.
That's true. That's, you know...
Like, it's not like it's going to be an obscure flick.
That is what I sort of started to realize. That's what I have started to realize as we make our way through Project Melway, is that if I haven't heard of this movie, it's not going to be any good. It just
That's right.
isn't.
That's right. Because I hadn't seen Year of Living Dangerously, but I'd heard of it.
Exactly. You've heard of it.
I'd heard of The Bounty. Although I was not prepared for The Bounty to be as good as it was.
Agreed.
Better
But
than
I would
thought it
say,
was
but
gonna
I
be
would
by
say
far.
that part of the reason that I wasn't prepared for it to be as good as it was that I wasn't aware that it would be like
Good
it was
enough.
Hopkins and Mel Gibson at the top of their games, or at least Mel was close, right?
Yeah.
And everything else about that movie, frankly, I mean, it was a bunch of boobs and other people who were pretty good, but it was their movie, and so they made it good. Everyone else was fine to good, but it didn't matter because their parts were so small, right?
Yes.
I mean, is that a mischaracterization?
You said they had small parts.
In the same breath as I talked about boobs. And yes,
Andy.
family podcast. Family podcast. I'm sorry.
Podcast, Andy.
I'm sorry.
Family podcast.
I'm sorry.
We believe in promoting family values. The Gibsonian Institute, in particular, is very concerned with promoting appropriate family. I can't even finish that sentence.
Yeah,
hey,
you can't.
here's the deal. Mrs. Soffel, right? Mrs. Soffel is okay. It's set in turn of the century America, not this century, by the way. Turn of the 20th century America, which I have said before and will say again is to me one of the most boring times in the history of the world. I have no interest in 1900. I have none. I don't. The thing is that I don't care about it.
Yeah,
and then
no, that's fair.
and it's starring Diane Keaton as the wife of the warden of a Pittsburgh prison.
Yep.
Her husband Edward Herrmann, who is one of my favorite character actors, has, as far as I can tell, no part. But his mustache is phenomenal.
It's true. It's true.
So Mel Gibson and Matthew Modine are brothers who have been arrested and convicted of murder, which they maintain they did not commit, but they're sentenced to hanging. Mrs. Soffel meets them, and she makes it a habit of going around to new prisoners and offering them Bibles and teaching them about the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. But if what she doesn't count on is falling in love.
Oh man, that could have been the trailer.
And so she falls in love with Mel Gibson's character, who maintains his innocence and his brother's innocence. And then she ends up deciding, in the midst of teaching them about the Lord Jesus, she ends up falling in love with him, cheating on her husband like all good Christians do, and helping them break out of jail.
Yes.
Which, again, there's many passages, Lord, you have set your captives free. So maybe she thought she was doing the Lord's work in that sense. Yeah.
Indeed.
Jailbreak, 1900. And and all this sounds like it could be a good movie.
Yes. The
It's
cast
not.
is wonderful. You've got Diane Keaton, who's great. You've got Mel Gibson, who's great. Matthew Modine, who's great. Edward Herrmann, who's great. Terry O'Quinn, who's great, who has literally
Terry O'Quinn, who's
in it for like 30 seconds.
Why did they even give his name in the movie? He was.
Right.
It was like, was that Terry? Yeah. Okay.
Yep. And then Trini Alvarado, who I know from the movie The Frighteners, is the eldest daughter. The eldest daughter, the one that's like, I hope mom's dead, basically.
And then there's which she said in like the saddest way, not in like the I hope my mom dies. Like what happens is the mom helps them escape and then goes off with them. And then when there's this manhunt for them, it's like they all realize, wow, mom left us for the criminals. And one of the daughters thinks it's awesome. She's like, well, they were innocent anyway. And then the other daughter is like, I hope that she's dead because it'll be better for her, basically.
Right. If she's dead, perhaps she was goaded into it or tricked into it and not a full accomplice. And if she's dead, she won't face any repercussions.
Right.
That is, spoiler, that is not what it is. She doesn't.
The only way you could spoil this movie is by watching it.
Oh God.
I have no problem talking about this movie because no one is lining up to see it.
As Phil says, she didn't count on falling in love or the power of Mel Gibson's hunky smooches, because they are so powerful.
He is handsome in this film.
He is handsome.
Now, Andy and I have talked in the past about this. By the way, before I even get into that, also a character who's in it for 2 scenes. Her name is Dana Wheeler Nicholson. She plays Fletch's love interest in Fletch. She is also Mrs. Wyatt Earp in Tombstone.
Yes.
The opiate addict. She is, in the words of the great poet William Shakespeare, totes adorbs. I find her incredibly fetching.
You know what
Not
she
in
is
a lot of movies.
in later years? She's Tyra's mom on Friday Night Lights.
She is Tyra's mom.
Mm-hmm.
Good call.
Yeah.
She's good at playing damaged, apparently.
That is so true.
Tyra's mom on Friday Night Lights, people, if you didn't know what we were talking about. Friday Night Lights is the second greatest television show of all time, in case you were wondering and haven't seen it. Get your lives together and watch that. If you were thinking maybe I should watch...
Right. If you got a choice between watching Friday Night Lights or, say, Mrs. Soffel.
Then you don't really have a choice.
I cannot speak for Phil. I would not presume to.
Thank you.
I would go with Friday Night Lights. That's just me.
In this case, I will allow you to speak for me, and in this case only.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Phil and I both recommend Friday Night Lights over Mrs. Soffel.
It's a true story. It's a true story. So in this film, Mel Gibson and Diane, can I put that in quotes? In this film.
Yes.
Listeners
who are enjoying us on iTunes, he just used sarcastic air quotes around film.
Air quotes, just to make sure we're clear.
Yeah, air quotes, and I agree with that. Go ahead. In this
I have so many things to say about this movie. I don't really have... I have 3 things to say, and then we can just stop talking about it. The sooner the better.
It's just the worst.
Here's the thing. We watched a movie last time that was terrible called The River, but it was terrible in a way that I got mad at it.
Yeah.
Like I was angry the whole time I watched the movie.
Right.
This movie is just boring.
Right. It turned me into like a petulant 6-year-old. I was like, no, I don't want to watch the rest of it. You're stupid. Ugh.
So I started watching it on my laptop. I watched a chunk of it last night. In bed, and then just was like, oh well, now I want to sleep forever. And then I took like a bunch of pills, and I don't remember when I woke up.
And by that, guys, he means kill himself.
It was like taking something. That's what it felt like. I felt like I had like downed a bottle of NyQuil I was like, no. I turned it off. I watched the rest today on my laptop, sitting on a bench while also chatting with someone, and it made the movie just fly right by.
Nice.
And at one point, I kept not paying attention to what was going on in this one scene, so I had to keep trying to rewind it, which I'd never done on my laptop before. And then I realized I was rewinding to try to figure out what catastrophic thing had happened in the middle of something I didn't care about. The irony was so thick. I was like, why am I trying so hard to figure out what just happened when in the end it's just one more thing I don't care about.
Can I say unsung performances that I actually love? The old couple and their grandson that they stay with are awesome.
Yes.
so
A
awesome.
lot of good character actors in this film.
Yeah.
They just everybody who was in it was wonderful character actors. It looked beautiful.
It's true.
It was just. It also had everybody. Are you ready for this? The first ever that I've seen gunfight car chase on sleds. It was a sleigh ride, Jingle Bells car chase.
Yes.
Literally,
Yes.
literally.
Bullets.
We've all seen gunfights on horseback, and we've all seen car chases with gunfights. I have never seen them being like, "We've got to get away."
Yes.
Sleigh ride.
It's true.
Looking around.
It's true. It's
Looking
true.
around.
Like an angry
No sound.
Matthew Modine
You don't even hear
whipping the horses.
You don't even hear the gallops. You just hear like the shh. It's
true.
ridiculous.
It's true. If the song had been written about this movie, it would have been "Bullets Around Bobtail Fly." You know, it's just
Wow, Andy.
Yeah, did you see what I did there?
Wordy,
Yeah.
wordy and cute. I love that.
I am wordy and cute. What are you gonna do?
I mean, that should be your biography.
So
Your memoir.
memoir.
Okay,
yeah.
you've-
So go continue. I don't think you had done all three things that you wanted to say about this movie.
Well, I don't know that. Okay, so one was just one was we've talked in the past where there's the Gibson. We were starting realizing I have a theory that Gibson has a Yankees factor, which is there was a point in the actually it still kind of happens where the Yankees, who I despise, the New York Yankees, will get some baseball player who's either not that good or who hasn't been good in a while, and
Washed
somehow
up
they'll
hobo.
get better.
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
what?
Washed up hobo. That, as you just said, I interrupted you. They just get better when they put on the pinstripes.
Or someone who's just never quite been that great, and somehow they put on the pinstripes and something happens.
Right.
I've noticed that, and we noticed that in past. We noticed that there was a movie called Tim, and there was an actress named Piper Laurie in it, and Andy and I had never found her attractive, and yet in this movie she was attractive, and we were like, that was weird. And then Sigourney Weaver is legitimately beautiful, but for some reason I had never noticed it before, and then she was so amazingly attractive in The Year of Living Dangerously with Mel Gibson that we were like, I like had to rethink my entire career of Sigourney Weaver watching, and was like, wait a minute, Sigourney Weaver has always been beautiful. You've had the power to go home all along. All you needed to do was click your heels. Right? You had the power to see Sigourney Weaver was attractive all along. So then I was like, let's see if this is really true, because I have never been attracted to Diane. And it happened again with Sissy Spacek.
And then Sissy Spacek last week with the River. Yes,
which I never expected.
No,
so
you never do.
Diane Keaton, who I've never found to be, she's never been my taste.
Sure. That's fair.
Phenomenal actor. I mean, Diane Keaton is
wonderful.
Is one of the great living actors of our time. But I've never personally found her attractive.
Yeah.
And I think this movie was unfair because I think she had a shot. This was the first time I've ever seen her actually just be full-on romantic in the sense of, like, in Woody Allen movies, there's so much neurosis going on.
Right. She's quirky more than she. Yes. Yeah.
It's such, and you never really see the fruits. Here you see her just being passionate.
Mm-hmm.
And so it almost happened, but the problem is she has a hair her hair looks like a standard poodle. It's like curly fro in front with like this weird long, like it's almost like a mullet. It's disastrous. It's so goofy like this that it almost makes her look like cross-eyed. And it's not her fault.
Sure.
So I'm not going to use this movie as conclusive evidence one way or the other of the Mel Gibson factor when it comes to attractiveness. I will say that she got closer than ever.
Sure.
In this movie.
Sure.
So I'm not. To me, it's inconclusive at best. Okay, that's one.
Yeah.
That's one. Okay. What? I'll let you go. Do you have some? What do you want to say?
I want to talk about Edward Herrmann. Because
this will be a short conversation.
Say again.
This will be a short conversation.
Well, very briefly, and I'm sure we'll get into it more later. But I want to talk about Mel Gibson very briefly. He again, much like with The River, you can see his progression as a movie star because
We're talking about Mel or Edward Herrmann?
Mel Gibson. He's clearly like this is his anti-hero, which he has already played better and will play better again. with Mad Max and with Martin Riggs and
But in
various
this,
other people.
but in this, he was smoldering.
It's true. It's true. And you can see him
And he
sort
had like
of
one
building.
moment of humor. He had like one moment of humor.
I don't remember it, but I will believe
When he
you.
said something about when he says something about they break out and like someone sees them together and he says, "This is my newlywed, this is my bride," and he makes a joke about it. And it's like the
yes.
closest humor in the entirely humorless film.
Yes. So you can see why he chose the movie, and you could see him sort of developing as an actor and a movie star. But Edward Herrmann is, and I say this with affection, I cannot think of anyone who inspires less passion than Edward Herrmann. And I want to be clear about this because he plays the staid grandfather in Gilmore Girls so well. In Lost Boys, he
don't spoil it.
He adds some humor to his performance.
Yes.
But
he's goofy. He's goofy, sort of staid.
Yes.
Yes.
And in other words, if you were going to cast a movie or cast a character who is going to get cheated on, right?
Edward Herrmann.
I think you could do a lot worse than Edward Herrmann, and I feel bad because Mr. Herrmann, I don't know if you're married. I hope you are because I love you and I want you to be happy.
I hope you're not a cuckold. I hope you're not getting cuckolded on a regular basis.
But so there's no way to sort of say that without casting an aspersion along with it. But I don't mean it that way. I think.
Can I say that casting aspersions is one of my favorite things that anyone ever said?
Well, you're welcome.
I love that. Thank you for that.
Hey, you're welcome. Seriously. He inspires zero passion. So you can see, and then she goes into jail and dangerous, smoldering Mel Gibson is there. So I get it. Still didn't make the movie any interesting in the least. That's all I wanted to say. Continue.
Edward Herrmann has been married twice and has 3 children. He's been married to his second wife since 1992. So that's
good for you,
Ed.
That's
21 years of marriage.
Good for you, Ed.
His son is a chef who works at a nice restaurant in the Bev Hills.
Nice.
He's a well-known automotive enthusiast and restores classic automobiles. You can totally see him wearing like the goggles.
Totally. Okay. And like the cap.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now clearly I'm a religious person, so anytime there are religious aspects to movies, I get all goofy. Okay. This movie was troubling.
I can't imagine why.
Well, but there's the thing that's funny to me is that it starts out, she has she actually plays a religious character that has she's not so often in movies, especially these days, religious characters are caricatures or fundamentalist crazy people. And she is a Christian who is not there to save souls. She's actually trying to bring some level of compassion, and like she has a verse she reads where he's like, "Oh, you're going to read this verse to me about how I should do this," and she's like, "No, I was actually going to read this verse," and she's like, "Blessed are you when you're downtrodden. Blessed are the brokenhearted. Blessed are," like she's reading this thing about like to a prisoner. She's trying to give them some sense of compassion and grace. And so from a Christian standpoint,
it comes from an honest place. Yes,
not just an honest place, but a nuanced, caring, compassionate place.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed.
Her faith is something that gives her a sense of compassion for the prisoner.
Yes.
Don't care if you're guilty or not. I believe that you deserve this. Mm-hmm. I believe that you deserve love and grace and compassion. Mm-hmm. So for me, I love that stuff. Yes.
Amen.
But then she literally just like, never mind, let me cheat on my family, help you break out, and not give a crap about anything.
Right. Yes.
Like there's no sense. We never get to understand why she doesn't love her husband. We never get to understand that relationship. She leaves her family. I have a lot of issues with movies, books, stories where someone's just like, "Hey, remember that family I had? Whatevs.
I'm out. Peace.
I'm out." Right.
No.
And then so there's this one point where she's basically like comforting her lover after they've broken out, and she talks to him about God, and I'm like, "Stop. Just you.
Right.
You're
you
done.
have lost
You're
the
done."
moral high ground.
If there was a point where she had actually figured out a way to come to grips on any level, even if it was rationalizing. But at the end, she's like, "You better not bring that preacher to me." I'm like, "Oh, I guess, I don't know."
Right.
look, I don't mind people losing their faith. We talked about The Gray before, and it's a movie where, like, in the end, like, the main guy is not someone who's like, hooray God at all.
Right.
That's fine with me. At least it's honest.
Yep.
But this movie introduces the idea and then is just like, oh, we weren't actually going to address that.
Right. Right.
We were just checking the box. We just needed a way for her to we needed to figure out a way for her to bring in, to smuggle in nail or files so they could file through the jail cell door, and clearly it was a Bible.
Clearly it was a Bible. Yes.
Anyways, that's all. There's one other thing I want to say. Do you have anything else you want to say about this just craptastic movie?
It manages to lift, mostly in spirit, although in a bunch of the plot points are similar. It is like, and I think Roger Ebert even says this in his review, especially the ending, it's like a weak sauce Bonnie and Clyde. I mean, like, lovers on the lam, and then they die badly, except they don't even have the strength of the conviction to let everybody die. Diane Keaton's character gets, there's just this ridiculous...
She gets shot in the heart point blank and lives.
Yes.
No, she doesn't. That's not
right.
a thing that happens.
In 1900, in 1903 Pittsburgh. Sure.
Right. In the 1600s with a musket, who knows? Okay? You got a blunderbuss, who knows what's going to happen? Okay? But like this is not that.
But like every moment, for example, I'll give you an example. I enjoyed, Phil, Waterworld. Not because it was a good movie, but because periodically during Waterworld I was like, "Oh, I know where they lifted this from The Road Warrior, because it's the same movie. Now I'm not watching Waterworld. Now I'm remembering The Road Warrior in my head, right?"
Now I've got something else going on.
Right, I've got something else going on, which is better. Similar things happened with this movie and Bonnie and Clyde, but it just made me angry. It was like, why am I not watching Bonnie and Clyde die in a hail of bullets? Why am I watching a sleigh chase? Oh, terrible. That's it. I'm done. Continue.
One thing I want to say before we go, which is that I realized I was looking ahead and I was reading a recap of Lethal Weapon, and it said that, or a review of it, and it said that, Mel Gibson departed from his art house movie roles to take Lethal Weapon.
Interesting.
And then it hit me. But that's the thing, is we've been thinking, like, when is he going to get famous? The reality was Mel Gibson was trying to do these artsy, challenging roles.
Yes.
He was trying to find them.
Yeah.
And these two were his first two real American movies, this and The River. Yeah. And then Mad Max is a return to his old school thing, but George Miller's definitely art house in a lot of ways.
Sure.
Indie filmmaker guy. Mel Gibson, we think of as one of the great figures of mainstream pop culture movies of the last 20 years.
But he did not start that way. That's fair.
Not at all. And I don't think I'd realized that. And the fact that I'm looking forward to finally getting to the mainstream stuff, I think says a lot about me. That for all our artsy fartsy talk, I am really, really artsy fartsy about pop culture cinema.
That's fair. That's fair. But I also don't think you can make a blanket statement about yourself based on the career of Mel Gibson. For example.
No, I'm not making a blanket statement about that. I mean, the fact that I'm more interested in doing a Mel Gibson filmography than, like, Truffaut says a lot about
fair. Me. But if we were to replace, and we won't, don't worry, if when we were done with Project Melway, if we moved on to, say, Paul Dano, you would not be more excited, although it was a good movie, you would not be more excited for Looper than you would for There Will Be Blood, or even necessarily for Little Miss Sunshine. Does that make sense?
Those are also all movies of our time. I'm more excited also to finally get into my era. That's
a fair point.
We have made it to me now. Right now, we have made it.
That's true.
Because I don't... Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome is apparently not good, but at least I know the character, and then I know that after... And Tina Turner's in it, it's going to be ridiculous. Right. And then after that, it's all mainstream pop culture American films of my era, of my generation. So I feel like I'm home even when it's bad.
Indeed. So let's talk about what's coming up. To sum up, Mrs. Soffel, terrible. Don't see it. Really boring. Next week,
Well, what's funny is no one would have ever thought of seeing it.
that's true.
Like
Don't.
I got it on Netflix and they sent me like a Betamax. They weren't even shockingly not available on Blu-ray yet.
Awesome. So what's coming up? As Phil alluded to, next week we have the third and, as of this moment, final Mad Max movie. Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. Then, perhaps his most famous character, Lethal Weapon, the first Lethal Weapon movie the week after. After that, Tequila Sunrise, a just ridiculous but fun movie with Kurt Russell and what's her name?
Never seen it. So excited. Never seen it.
I remember very much enjoying it, and I look forward to seeing it. And we're full on Project Melway Mel Gibson American movie star
I feel like
2 weeks from now. Yeah.
I feel like this just got real.
Yeah, this just got real.
Okay. But if you haven't watched the past ones, forget it. If you haven't watched all the stuff that we got through, don't even watch. I'm kidding. Keep watching. In fact, watch more now.
Please keep watching. But yes, as Phil says, it's about to get real. As for Mrs. Soffel, it just got real. Boring. Zing!
Yeah, it's big zing. There's a moment in The Simpsons, back when The Simpsons was funny.
Yeah.
When Homer says, "We'll just take this shortcut," and then it says like 8 hours later, and their car is all broken down, and he goes, "Let us never speak of the shortcut again." Let us never speak of Mrs. Soffel again.
Yes. And ever. With that, we bid you a very fond adieu. We will see you again real soon. This has been another Second Breakfast installment of Project Melway. I'm Andy Roth. That's Phil Duvall.
It's true. It is.
And, yeah, we'll see you again real soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.